Hello, I'm Vanessa Villarreal, and I am the Public Relations Officer for Glass Mountain, and I'm sitting here with Heather Pedoto, who is the author of One of Five Things Adeline Stein Left on
On
the
the
Bus. Okay, long title.
It is. It is. It's actually for the thesis itself. It's longer. It's 1 out of 5 items that Adeline Stein left on the bus on the way to the zoo. But
Oh,
I
wow.
shortened it for this one.
That's pretty cool.
It's the longest title of anything I've ever.
Cool. Well, I asked you, Heather, here today to talk about your piece. It's the most ambitious piece we've seen, I think, since I've been on staff. And we kind of wanted to pick your brain and see what was going on and talk about the writing process for this particular piece. So I'm just going to start off. Where did you get the idea for the Adeline Stein story, and why is it in journal form?
Well, it started out a year and a half ago. I wanted to write a piece for a workshop, and I wanted to do something that was kind of fun and that didn't feel like work, and it just ended up that I didn't want to stop writing it. It turned into my senior honors thesis,
Cool.
and it was just it just kind of snowballed, and that's how it
Okay.
happened.
So have you been working on this piece for a long time, like over a series of workshops, or was it just for one workshop?
A series of workshops, two of them to be exact, really, and that about a year and a half span of time, with my thesis committee to end.
Okay, cool. So what was the reader response in your workshops?
A lot of people really liked it, and that made me really happy.
Good.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So why did you choose this particular narrative structure to approach this story?
Well, for one thing, I have a hard time with first person, not because it's hard to write, but because I don't know if I believe it all the time. Like if
Like it's not earned,
yeah,
or
it's not earned. People who write first person stories just kind of expect you to trust their character, and so I wanted to make a character that maybe couldn't be trusted. People people who are in first person stories, the writers are usually really good, which is great. But if the character isn't a writer, and it's from their perspective, it's like, where's this metaphor coming from? Where does
right.
it belong? So I wanted to make a character that was also a writer, so that these questions would be answered.
That's often something that comes up in workshops. How is this first person story, why is it written in this like high writerly or like lyrical voice,
Yeah.
and how is that earned for this character? Unless your character is an MFA student,
Yeah, exactly.
it's hard to justify. And some readers do it, or I'm sorry, some writers do it really successfully,
They do.
but it's hard to pull off, a lot of the time.
I completely agree.
So. Okay, so why did you choose this particular narrative structure? Oh, did we talk about that already?
I think so.
We did.
That's okay.
I'm going to push this paper. Is it more related to the nature of the character of Addie, or a personal aesthetic choice to approach it this way through the journal entries?
It goes back and forth. I think that a lot of it is in the character of Addie to do that, to record everything. But then again, what I wanted to do is I tried to break it up with poetry, and in some portions I wrote little newspaper articles
I
to
saw
put
that.
in.
I thought that was really cool.
Well, thank you. And that's because her narrative voice can get really hard to take, and I didn't want to make it so that a reader would read it and be like, oh, she's doing shtick. It's gotten old by now. I wanted to make sure that each time I turned it a little differently, and every once in a while I broke it up with something that wasn't so harsh and unforgiving.
Yeah. Okay. Can you talk about Addie a little bit? Because she's still kind of a mystery on the page.
Yeah, she is. Well, she lives in California. She's a college student, sort of. A lot of this is still in progress, but she's not even going to go to her own graduation because she doesn't want her family to find her, and that's how they found her last time.
Is through school.
Is through school. She's very paranoid, and not really for a good reason. Sometimes for a good reason.
Right.
Actually, I started out the story where she was at work and she was sure that someone was stealing her sodas, and so she decided that to test this, she would punch a hole in the soda can, the top of the soda can, with a paper clip and say that she injected a fast-acting poison into it, and that if anyone drank it, their tongue would swell to the size and texture of a recently deceased salmon. And someone stole her soda anyway, and she's like, I guess someone wants a salmon tongue, but that's not... That seems a little vulgar, doesn't it?
That's, I'm glad you talked about that, this kind of like random sort of quality to your piece, and that's what's so endearing about it.
I'm really glad.
But also, where do you get your ideas? I just think that, a lot of new writers come in trying to write the right story,
Yeah.
and it seemed like you just kind of tossed that out of the window, and you're just like, salmon tongue, like... Can you talk about that a little bit?
A lot of some of the ideas I get from life, there's this section, I'm not sure if it's actually in the Glass Mountain portion, where I write about how people open sugar packets and how important that is. That sometimes people just make a little crescent tear with their thumbs and fingers, and how Patrick, the male lead, opens it like he's cracking an egg, just tears it right down the middle and tips both halves into the coffee cup, and how that just means everything. And I actually saw a guy open sugar like that on a cruise, and so I had to put it into something, and I had to figure out how to make it work. And for the salmon tongue, it just kind of happens. A lot of it just happens. There's this one section about how she told her kindergarten class what hearts really looked like, that they weren't like this, they were the size of your fist, and with little tubes that came out of it. And that's actually from my life. The only thing that really translates back and forth between my life and her life is that, because the class called me a liar, and I'm like, that has to go in something, because I was right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you feel like Addie is somehow informed by your experiences? That's a literal sort of like one thing is immediate, or like it's basically true. It's basically nonfiction at that point. But how much of Addie's life do you inform with your own experiences and your own perspectives?
Not much of it. Not much of it. She's way braver than I am. I get really nervous, and she wouldn't hesitate to go up to someone and, like, tell her teacher that bow ties make him look hot. Like, it wouldn't even occur to...
But we're
to
all
her
thinking
to be
that
careful.
stuff.
Yeah. There's no filter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess in some ways, like, internal monologue kind of goes through that, and I think that's something that has to happen with comedy, that it has to be kind of this obsessive, like, returning to themes over and over again, and thinking it through as you're going through day to day.
Yeah.
So it's like she's the coffee grounds and I'm the coffee filter, and eventually we get a cup of coffee, and hopefully it's strong enough.
Cool. So do you feel Addie is likable? Is one of the questions that I wrote. And I mean, I'm talking about how she is likable, but is she likable to other characters within the fiction? Or do you think that she's perplexing somehow, and she exists as like an island of herself,
It's another one of those that goes back and forth things. I think to some people she's equally perplexing, infuriating, sometimes likable, but she doesn't think she's likable at all. She's just like, I'm an awful person, I don't know why you hang out with me, you're stupid, sort of thing. And,
right.
And that's how it goes.
Cool. Well, how much of this story is taken from, the way you maybe wrote your own journals? Or, I mean, there's some really interesting stuff going on in this story. The limericks, especially the Oxford comma one, because it's a pleasure to hear, and then you make the little comma.
Yeah.
And you stand aside, and it seems like you just really take pleasure with language and things like that, but it's tied to a personal experience. And I don't know, I just think that the journal format works really well with this particular piece.
It's a lot of fun to do. I recommend it for any writer, just to try writing journals, and you'll just get through it so much, and you'll start loving what you write, and it's a lot of fun. I have actually never been able to sustain my own journal. Like, I've never been... I'll get, like, 20 pages in and then just get tired of it. And like,
but Addie's journal you can maintain.